Let's be brutally honest here. This isn't just a basketball deal. This is a takeover. Nike has essentially declared Caitlin Clark the face of not just the WNBA, but of women's sports globally. And in doing so, they've also sent a not-so-subtle message to every other athlete in the league. Step aside. There's a new standard now. Caitlin Clark's groundbreaking $28 million contract over 8 years isn't just the biggest women's basketball deal in history, it's a shot across the bow to every competitor, Angel Reese included. Think about that number for a second. $28 million. That's more than some NBA role players make. That's more than entire WNBA salary caps. It's Nike telling the world that Clark isn't just another promising player. She's a business, a brand, and a cultural movement all in one. The scale of this deal is what makes it so historic. For years, women's basketball stars have fought for recognition, but most were given modest endorsement contracts, rarely approaching the figures their male counterparts received. Clark's deal obliterates that ceiling. It plants her squarely in the same conversation as NBA superstars when it comes to marketing value. And let's not gloss over the timing. Nike waited until her rookie season buzz hit its absolute peak, then struck with an offer no one else could match. The shockwave wasn't limited to the US either. International media picked up on this announcement, and suddenly, Caitlin Clark's name is being spoken in the same breath as global icons like Serena Williams and Naomi Osaka. And here's where it gets really controversial. By investing this much money into Clark, Nike has effectively chosen sides. They're saying, this is the player we're betting on. This is the one worth building an empire around. And that leaves others, including Angel Reese, in a very awkward position. Because if Clark is commanding this kind of respect and financial backing, then every comparison, every brand battle, every sneaker launch from here on out is going to feel like it's happening in her shadow. In short, Nike didn't just sign Clark, they crowned her. And that coronation has changed the landscape of women's basketball forever. Now let's talk about something that has the entire sports and fashion world buzzing Caitlin Clark's new logo. And here's where the story gets even more controversial. Because this isn't just about design, this is about dominance. Nike didn't hand Clark a simple branding mark, they gave her a symbol. The interlocking double C logo, with its sleek lines and hidden third C, has become the visual crown on her growing empire. And whether you love it or you hate it, one thing is undeniable, you can't escape it. Billboards in major cities? Covered. Social media feeds? Flooded. Merchandise racks? Completely sold out. This logo didn't just launch, it detonated. What makes it so fascinating is how quickly it has transcended basketball. Normally, a player logo takes years to gain recognition. Think of Michael Jordan's Jumpman. It took repeated championships, iconic moments, and decades of marketing. Caitlin Clark's Double C achieved culturelle relevance almost overnight. Within days of its reveal, fashion bloggers compared it to Chanel and Gucci, placing it in the category of luxury branding, not just sportswear. That's unheard of for a rookie in her first professional season. And it begs the question, if Clark's logo is being compared to global fashion houses, where does that leave Angel Reese's Halo logo? Honestly, it's already struggling for oxygen. But the deeper meaning is, what makes Clark's logo resonate with fans? Nike has carefully tied it to her identity, the confidence she exudes, the connection she has with supporters, and her deadly shooting range that feels almost limitless. This isn't just marketing spin. Fans genuinely buy into it. They wear the logo as if it's not just representing Caitlin, but representing ambition, resilience, and the future of women's basketball. That kind of symbolism creates loyalty that no rival can buy. Now here's the uncomfortable part for the competition. Every time Angel Reese or any other WNBA star steps onto the court, they'll see that logo on the shoes of fans, on the shirts of teammates, on TV graphics, even on kids in the stands. It's omnipresent. And omnipresence is power. Nike knows this. That's why they've gone all in with saturation marketing. The logo is no longer just Caitlin's. It's a movement, and for Angel Reese, that's gotta feel like standing in the shadow of a skyscraper you can't climb. Because once a logo stops being a brand and starts becoming a cultural symbol, the game is essentially over. Caitlin Clark's mark has already crossed that line, and that's why this isn't just a launch, it's a phenomenon. Here's where the numbers speak louder than any headline. Caitlin Clark's merchandise isn't just selling, it's disappearing like water in a desert. And that frenzy, ladies and gentlemen, is redefining what athlete-driven retail looks like. We've seen jerseys sell fast before. We've seen sneakers trend for a moment. But Clark's merchandise is operating on an entirely different level. It's not demand, it's mania. Her draft day jersey, gone in under an hour. Her all-star jersey, sold out in 15 minutes flat. Her special edition Kobe sneakers, off the shelves before most fans could even click add to cart. In fact, secondary markets like eBay are now treating her gear like investment stock, doubling and tripling prices because the resale value is that strong. This isn't just about basketball fans. This is about Clark crossing over into the mainstream marketplace, where sneakerheads, casual fashion buyers, and even people who don't watch a single WNBA game are clamoring to get her products. Think about the imagery here. Lines outside, sporting goods, stores, fans refreshing their browsers until sites crash, parents bidding outrageous amounts just so their kids can wear Clark's name on their backs. This isn't typical. This is cultural saturation. Now, compare that with Angel Reese's situation. Her Reebok deal promised her a signature shoe. Yes, but when the early designs leaked, the response was lukewarm at best. Critics described the white colorway as too basic for a supposed all-star release, and fans questioned why the shoe didn't have more creativity. And that's the problem. Clark's products are selling themselves because her name has become synonymous with excitement and exclusivity, while Reese's releases feel like a corporate attempt to keep pace. One feels organic, the other feels manufactured. And the most telling indicator? Scalpers. You don't see resellers camping outside for Angel Reese sneakers. You don't see her jerseys flooding eBay at triple the price. But with Clark, that's exactly what's happening. It proves one undeniable truth. Caitlin Clark isn't just moving merchandise. She's creating cultural moments. Buying her gear isn't just a purchase, it's participation in a movement, a badge of belonging to something bigger than basketball. And that's why every single drop sells out. Because when you're not just selling products, but selling identity, scarcity becomes the most powerful marketing weapon of all. In short, Clark's merchandise frenzy is proof that she's not just a player, she's an economy. And no other player in the league, including Angel Reese, has shown they can come close to matching that kind of consumer devotion. Here's where the divide between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese becomes undeniable and, frankly, brutal. Caitlin Clark's brand has gone global. Angel Reese's, by comparison, feels stuck in a local loop. Let me explain. When Nike unveiled Clark's signature logo and announced her upcoming product line, it wasn't just a US rollout. It was a worldwide campaign. Billboards popped up not only in New York and Los Angeles, but in London, Tokyo, Paris, and even Sao Paulo. Social media metrics showed that fans from Asia, South America, and Europe were all buzzing about Clark's brand. And let's be clear, these aren't casual observers. These are basketball fans halfway across the world pulling out their credit cards, ordering Clark jerseys and shoes, and treating her as if she's already an international superstar on par with the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo or Serena Williams. Now compare that to Angel Reese's Reebok deal. Reebok, while a respected brand in its heyday, simply doesn't have the infrastructure or global reach to compete with Nike's machine. Reese's upcoming Angel Reese 1 Diamond Dust sneaker may get coverage in Chicago, maybe even a splash on ESPN or US-based sports blogs. But the global basketball community? They're not paying attention. Reebok isn't plastering Reese's image across international cities. They're not pushing her shoe in massive campaigns that span continents. And without that muscle, Reese's appeal remains limited. Local popularity versus Clark's global phenomenon. Here's why that matters. Sports branding today isn't just about national recognition. The biggest stars, LeBron James, Lionel Messi, Naomi Osaka, generate income because they transcend borders. Their merchandise sells whether you're in New York, Beijing, or Lagos. That's exactly the position Nike is building for Clark. They're making her a household name in countries that barely follow the WNBA. Fans abroad may not know the Chicago Sky or the Indiana Fever, but they now know the Double C logo. And once that logo becomes recognizable worldwide, Clark's power stretches far beyond the basketball court. For Angel Reese, that's a devastating reality. While she may dominate a few headlines here and there in the US, Caitlin Clark is winning the global conversation. And in the business of sports, global reach equals longevity. It means endorsements outside of basketball. It means crossovers into fashion, lifestyle, entertainment sectors that Reebok just doesn't have the leverage to unlock for Reese. So the controversy here is this. One player is building a worldwide empire, while the other is trying to keep pace with a regional following. It's not even about talent on the court anymore. It's about whose name resonates in arenas oceans away. And right now, Caitlin Clark's name is echoing louder than anyone else's, while Angel Reese is struggling to even get her voice heard beyond the American market. In branding terms, that's not just a gap, that's a canyon. Now let's pivot to Angel Reese, because her partnership with Reebok tells a very different story and not the one she probably imagined when she first signed the deal. When news broke that Reese had landed her own signature shoe with Reebok, there was a moment of genuine excitement. After all, she was marketed as the Bayou Barbie, the stylish, outspoken star with a growing fan base. Reebok even had legends like Shaquille O'Neal and Allen Iverson hyping her up, signaling that this was the company's big return to basketball relevancy. But once the initial headlines faded, the cracks in the strategy became painfully clear. First, let's talk about timing. Reese's sneaker release, the Angel Reese 1 Diamond Dust, was positioned as her grand entry into the sneaker world. But while Clark's Nike line is framed as an empire launch, Reese's Reebok shoes are being treated more like a niche release. Two colorways, white and pink, were teased, but instead of sparking frenzy, the reaction was flat. Fans online described them as uninspired, generic, and lacking the creativity you'd expect from a young star stepping into her spotlight. And here's the kicker. While Clark's gear sold out within minutes, Reese's shoes are expected to sit comfortably on shelves. That's not a sign of star power, that's a sign of missed opportunity. Second, the brand backing her matters. Nike has the global dominance, the cultural sway, and the marketing budget to make Clark a superstar. Reebok, they're in rebuild mode, trying desperately to claw back market share in a basketball shoe game they abandoned years ago. Signing Reese felt like a move to gain relevance, but in truth, it highlights how far Reebok has fallen. And for Angel, that association could be more damaging than helpful. She may have thought she was becoming the face of Reebok, but what good is being the face of a brand that doesn't command respect in today's market? And third, the optics. Every time Caitlin Clark's name trends, Reese's deal looks smaller in comparison. It's not just about the numbers, though Clark's $28 million Nike deal dwarfs anything Reebok could offer. It's about perception. Clark's products feel like luxury must-haves. Reese's feel like underwhelming alternatives. Fans aren't rushing to buy Angel's sneakers because they don't feel like cultural statements, they feel like just another shoe. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Angel Reese's Reebok struggles prove that not all signature deals are created equal. One athlete is being elevated into global superstardom. The other is carrying the burden of trying to resuscitate a brand that can barely keep up. And if the early reactions are any indication, Reese might end up being remembered less for her shoes and more for the fact that she signed with the wrong company at the wrong time. For her, that has to sting. Because while Caitlin Clark is setting trends, Angel Reese is fighting not to be left behind. Let's put the numbers, the optics, and the impact side by side, because this is where the gap between Nike and Reebok becomes crystal clear. And frankly, it's almost unfair. On one side, you have Nike, the undisputed king of global sports marketing, with a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure built to manufacture cultural icons. On the other side, you have Reebok, a brand once legendary in the 90s, but now playing catch-up in a game they've already lost. The disparity is staggering, and Angel Reese is caught in the middle of it. Nike's decision to make Caitlin Clark one of their signature athletes was not just a business move, it was a declaration. The unveiling of her logo, the promise of a full product line, and the marketing blitz that followed instantly positioned Clark as more than just a basketball player. She's being treated like a luxury brand. Her logo has been compared to Chanel and Gucci. Her sneakers are sold out before most fans even know they exist. That's Nike's strength. They don't just sell shoes. They sell identity, aspiration, and exclusivity. And Clark is now the centerpiece of that strategy. Now, let's contrast that with Reebok. Angel Reese's signing was supposed to symbolize Reebok's big comeback into the basketball world, spearheaded by Shaquille O'Neal's leadership. But the execution has been underwhelming. Reebok lacks the marketing budget, the cultural relevance, and the international infrastructure to compete with Nike's global machine. Reese may be their brightest hope, but being the face of a struggling brand is a heavy burden. Instead of elevating her, the partnership risks anchoring her career to a company that doesn't have the firepower to deliver. The disparity also extends into consumer behavior. Nike's Caitlin Clark Cobes, they sold out in minutes, resold for hundreds more, and became instant collector's items. Reese's Reebok sneakers, they haven't even hit the market yet, and already the buzz feels muted. The difference isn't in the athlete's talent, it's in the brands backing them. Nike knows how to create demand. Reebok is still trying to prove it even belongs in the conversation. And here's where it gets controversial. Angel Reese might have believed she was signing a groundbreaking deal with Reebok, but in reality, she may have locked herself into a ceiling. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark has no ceiling at all. Nike is making sure of that. By betting on Clark, they're rewriting what it means to be a women's sports superstar. By betting on Reese, Reebok is trying to rewrite its own relevance. And those are two very different missions. One elevates the athlete, the other uses the athlete as a lifeline. So when you hear about Angel Reese's Reebok partnership, remember this. It's not just Reese versus Clark, it's Reebok versus Nike. And in that battle, the result feels inevitable. Nike has the tools to build legends. Reebok, at best, is trying not to be forgotten. That's not a level playing field, it's a mismatch. And Angel Reese may find herself stuck on the wrong side of history. Now let's step beyond basketball because Caitlin Clark's influence can't be measured solely in points, assists, or highlight reels. Her real power lies in something far bigger, cultural domination. And make no mistake, that's exactly what we're witnessing. Clark is no longer just a basketball star. She's a generational figure whose reach extends into fashion, entertainment, and even politics. She's shaping conversations far outside the hardwood, and that's why she feels untouchable right now. Consider this. When Clark debuted her Nike Kobe sneakers during the All-Star game, they weren't just shoes, they were a cultural moment. Social media platforms exploded. TikTokers filmed unboxings that went viral within hours. Instagram influencers who don't even cover sports-styled outfits around her gear. It wasn't just about basketball fans, it was about mainstream audiences wanting to be part of the Caitlin Clark effect. That's the definition of cultural pull. Now, compare that to Angel Reese. She's carved a niche as the Bayou Barbie, with a glamorous image and bold personality. She has her fan base, no doubt, but her reach has limits. Reese appeals mostly to her own followers and LSU loyalists, whereas Clark has become a universal figure. People who had never watched a WNBA game suddenly know her name. Little kids are showing up in her jerseys. Late-night talk shows are cracking jokes about her. Even global news outlets are reporting on her endorsement deals. That's not sports coverage, that's cultural relevance. What makes Clark different is that she transcends the usual labels. She's not marketed as just a women's basketball player, she's marketed as the basketball player of this generation. Period. Her story resonates because it blends talent with relatability. She's Midwestern, humble yet fiercely competitive, approachable yet larger than life. That's a formula brands and fans can't resist. And the effect? Every time Clark makes a move, whether it's a new shoe drop or a record-breaking game, it ripples through culture like an earthquake. Meanwhile, Reese is struggling to generate that same effect. Her narrative is more polarizing. Fans either love her or roll their eyes. That's not inherently bad, but it's limiting. Clark's domination comes from universal appeal. Reese's influence, while strong in certain circles, doesn't spill into every corner of culture the way Clark's does. Here's the key takeaway. Caitlin Clark's domination is no accident. It's the result of strategic branding, extraordinary talent, and timing that's almost historic. She arrived at a moment when women's sports are exploding in popularity, and she became the face of that movement. That's why her cultural influence feels unstoppable. She's not just in the conversation, she is the conversation. And for Angel Reese, that's a nearly impossible bar to match. Because it's not just about who wins games, it's about who defines an era. And right now, that era has Caitlin Clark's name written all over it. Now let's address the elephant in the room, media narratives. Because when it comes to Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, perception isn't just influenced by what happens on the court, it's crafted, shaped, and amplified by the way the media chooses to tell their stories. And if you think the coverage is even, you haven't been paying attention. Let's start with Caitlin Clark. Every headline about her seems to radiate positivity. Record-breaking rookie, the face of women's basketball, the future of the WNBA. She's painted as a prodigy, a trailblazer, a humble yet fearless competitor. News outlets aren't just reporting her stats, they're framing her as an icon in the making. ESPN dedicates entire segments to her. SportsCenter runs her highlights at the top of the show. Mainstream outlets like Time Magazine and the New York Times cover her as if she's bigger than the sport itself. That kind of narrative doesn't just build popularity, it builds mythology. Now look at how Angel Reese is covered. She's often framed as the polar opposite, controversial, polarizing, the villain. Her fiery competitiveness and unapologetic confidence, traits that would be celebrated in male athletes, are frequently twisted into negative talking points. Instead of headlines celebrating her dominance on the boards or her charisma off the court, the media leans into drama, trash talk, rivalries, and disputes. Reese is marketed more as Clark's foil than as her own individual star, and that difference in framing matters. Because when young fans see Clark portrayed as the hero and Reese portrayed as the agitator, public perception follows. But here's the catch. The media isn't just reflecting reality, it's shaping it. Clark and Reese could put up nearly identical stat lines, and the coverage would still lean overwhelmingly in Clark's favor. Why? Because Clark's narrative has been built around being the golden girl, the player who represents progress and marketability. Reese, on the other hand, has been boxed into a narrative of rivalry and defiance. And let's not forget how this spills into broader cultural conversations. Social media algorithms favor Clark highlights because they generate excitement and admiration. Reese's clips trend, but usually attached to controversy. One feels inspirational, the other feels divisive. That difference creates two very different public images, regardless of their actual on-court impact. Now, does Reese benefit from this in some ways? Absolutely. Being polarizing attracts attention, and attention equals money in today's digital economy. But there's a ceiling to controversy-driven fame. Clark's narrative is one of legacy building an athlete poised to change the entire game. Reese's narrative, at least for now, feels reactionary, someone defined by opposition rather than by her own standalone legend. The truth is, media narratives have tilted the playing field. Caitlin Clark is portrayed as the protagonist of women's basketball, while Angel Reese is framed as her challenger, her shadow, her contrast. And until that shifts, Clark will continue to dominate not just in reality, but in perception. And perception, as we know, is everything in sports marketing, because it's not just about who plays the game, it's about who controls the story. Follow the money, that's the golden rule in sports reporting. And if you follow the money trail right now, it all leads to Caitlin Clark. Because the sponsorship game, the single most important driver of athlete wealth outside their contracts, is shifting dramatically in her favor. And here's the uncomfortable truth for Angel Reese. The brands have spoken, and their investment choices make it very clear who they believe is the future of women's basketball. Clark isn't just signing deals, she's rewriting the entire sponsorship playbook. Her partnership with Nike alone set the tone, but that's just one piece of the puzzle. Major corporations from energy drink companies to tech brands are lining up not just to put their logo next to her name, but to weave her story into their identity. She's not just endorsing products, she's embodying them. That's the holy grail of marketing. Brands want authenticity, and Clark delivers it. Fans believe she's genuine, relatable, and aspirational all at once. That belief translates directly into sales. Now let's contrast this with Angel Reese. She has sponsorships, yes, but the scale and scope pale in comparison. Her deals lean more into fashion, lifestyle, and niche markets. While profitable, they don't carry the global resonance that Clark's partnerships do. A Reese campaign might dominate Instagram for a few days, but a Clark campaign shifts retail numbers nationwide. There's a massive difference between a viral moment and sustained brand power. And right now, Clark owns the latter. The sponsorship shift isn't just about dollars, it's about symbolism. Corporations are signaling their long-term bets, and their money says Caitlin Clark isn't just a WNBA player, she's a generational asset. Think about what that means for Reese. Every time Clark signs a multi-million-dollar deal, it widens the gap. Every time a major brand chooses Clark over Reese, it cements Clark's place as the global representative of women's basketball. Reese can keep building her brand, but she's climbing uphill against an avalanche of corporate support backing Clark. And here's the part people don't like to talk about. Sponsors create legacy. They decide who gets the billboards, who leads the commercials, who shows up in Super Bowl ads, and who becomes the face of youth campaigns. They decide who parents tell their kids to idolize. They don't just amplify athletes, they immortalize them. And right now, sponsorship power is immortalizing Caitlin Clark at a pace we've never seen in women's sports. Angel Reese isn't out of the game. Her charisma, style, and edge still make her marketable. But let's be brutally honest, she's not in Clark's tier. Not yet. Clark's sponsorship dominance means she's not just playing in a different league, she's defining what the league will be. And until Reese can command the same level of corporate faith, she'll always be the player with potential rather than the player with power. So when you ask who's really winning, look at the checks being signed, the commercials being aired, the billboards being lit up. The scoreboard doesn't lie. And right now, in the world of sponsorships, Caitlin Clark is blowing the competition out of the water. Ladies and gentlemen, let's be clear, this rivalry is far from over. In fact, it may only be in its opening act. Because the future of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese isn't just about stats, trophies, or contracts, it's about legacy. And legacy is carved over years, not seasons. So the big question is this: where does this rivalry go from here? Let's start with Caitlin Clark. She's already been branded as the face of women's basketball, but sustaining that spotlight requires more than raw talent. The WNBA is a marathon, not a sprint. Opposing defenses will adjust to her game, injuries, fatigue, and pressure will test her resilience. The challenge for Clark moving forward isn't whether she can dazzle us today, it's whether she can remain the standard for the next decade. If she succeeds, she won't just be remembered as great, she'll be remembered as transformational. Now, let's shift to Angel Reese. Her path is different, but no less compelling. Reese has the chance to redefine herself, not as Clark's foil, not as the so-called villain, but as a dominant, standalone icon in her own right. Her energy, her swagger, her ability to turn intensity into entertainment, that's her superpower. And let's be real, rivalries don't thrive unless both sides rise. Reese has every opportunity to sharpen her game, expand her influence, and prove that she's not just Clark's rival, she's her equal. The future of this rivalry hinges on whether Reese can seize that narrative shift. But here's what makes it fascinating. Women's basketball has never had a rivalry of this magnitude at the professional level. Think Magic versus Bird in the NBA. Their clashes didn't just shape games, they reshaped the league. The WNBA could be staring at its own version of that. Clark versus Reese isn't just about two athletes competing, it's about two forces of personality, two cultural icons colliding again and again. Every matchup will be billed as a spectacle. Every game they share the court will feel bigger than basketball. The implications stretch far beyond the court. Their rivalry will dictate TV ratings, ticket sales, sponsorship priorities, and global interest. Young athletes will grow up idolizing one or the other. drawing battle lines of fandom, the way kids once chose between Kobe and LeBron. And that's the beauty of it. Basketball thrives on conflict, storylines, and unforgettable duels. Clark and Reese provide all of that in abundance. So where does this all end? Maybe with championships, maybe with MVPs, maybe with one player standing taller in the history book, or maybe, just maybe, their greatest achievement will be how much bigger they make the game by pushing each other forward. Because whether you love Clark or ride with Reese, one thing is undeniable. Together, they are about to define the future of women's basketball in ways we've never seen before. The rivalry isn't closing, it's only beginning. And the world is watching.